So I think with social media, one of the things to notice is that our student community have grown up increasingly around those media. Unlike many of our academic staff for whom these were a midlife invention, our student community, particularly our undergraduates, have always been immersed in social media. So they don't particularly see it as quotes unquote social media, they just see it as how they communicate. And I think increasingly the university sector has to realise that sending people emails is only one form of communication and not necessarily the form of communication that our student community finds easiest or most natural to use. And there's a discomfort there because as universities we're prone to sending you official documentation and official instructions about where to go and what to do and what you need to do to find your assessments and so on through channels which are not necessarily the preserve of our student community. I do think that therefore there's a development trajectory where hopefully those two things will meet somewhere in the middle distance and we will be more comfortable as providers using social media to reach our students. But there's also a sense of community that comes from that which is very powerful, that our student community use naturally and would allow them, before they've even signed up to university, to meet their classmates, to form learning groups, to share information and so on, which I think they do much more naturally than we give them credit for. And I think that there are ways in which almost the learner analytics of how social media informs somebody's learning process would be really useful for us to understand better.
I suppose over the last 2 years, staff, and the faculties have started to see the capability of technology and what it can do for us, particularly in that part-time executive education market. So one area that I know we will continue with is that availability now of accessing a wide range of contributors into modules. So whether that's been an in-discussion series, maybe it's with an international academic or business professional that is able to come right into a classroom, either online or into a campus classroom to talk through an issue or a live business problem. We will do lots more of that. That has worked really well, and it adds a really authentic experience for the students. And it also translates very well into the experiential project-based learning by bringing in wider expertise. Linked to that as well, I think technology has greatly supported the peer learning aspect and the peer delivery aspect. And again, we have used very successfully, some learning sessions where it's not just the academic staff member, the students contributing using technology, and the organisation or employer is as well. So that's a very rich mix, and that can deliver some very innovative learning sessions where you've got that whole hybrid, of range of perspectives feeding into learning. So I think that the more we can do that, supported by technology, we will want to retain that.
We use social media a lot. All of our programmes are using social media in different ways. We've not prescribed it because the students are very different. Some of the programmes have got a much more international student base than others. So therefore social media that could work with one demographic of students won't work with another. One of our huge programmes, which has got close to 1,000 students on it, uses social media in a huge way. It's the core of their communication strategy. Every week things are going out, students are co-creating in that space, and they've co-created a wellbeing podcast, which is all through social media. So we use it a lot.
Clearly, the last couple of years have acted as a prompt for us to use new technologies that we might not have used before. But a really positive outcome here is that we've tried out new tools and we've tried out new learning technologies. So an example of this is that all of our teaching rooms are now equipped with 360 view cameras and microphones, which allows us to deliver dual mode teaching in a much more compelling fashion. And that's something that we're looking to take forward in terms of the fit out of our teaching spaces. So how can we take that technology to the next level? How can we improve camera technology? How can we improve the ability for students remotely to interact with students in the room? So this is a key theme that we're now seeking to look at, and we're looking at the physical spaces and how we can improve those for teaching and learning in the next few years.
In using technology to enhance the student experience, At the Liverpool Business School, we are undertaking or investing quite a lot in simulation software and in interactive textbooks, so that students have the opportunity to really dive deeper and apply their knowledge, the sort of technical knowledge that they've received or theoretical knowledge that they've received into practical examples, whether that be through a simulated environment or whether it be through online tests and linked challenges to the guided textbooks that might be being undertaken. In addition to that, we're also investing and working with a large number of companies. So we might, for example, pick on LinkedIn as one of our social media forms that we do utilise, where LinkedIn Learning is being offered to our students so that they can engage in sort of micro courses, micro credentials, and link those micro credentials to their LinkedIn profiles and helping them to navigate their own brand development within that social media space.
Using social media with students is a challenge for me because I am of that generation that sticks with Facebook and Twitter. They are the generation, most of my students, that are TikTokers and Instagram. So I was thinking, how do I kind of bridge what I feel is a personal divide, maybe my own kind of ineptness with social media. But I was thinking, where are all the conversations happening about my module? It is not on my virtual learning environment, my LMS. It's actually happening in WhatsApp and those. So I haven't created necessarily a WhatsApp, but how do we replicate those kind of conversations that are open and that are free? And I think it's something I'm still, I suppose, struggling with, but it's how do I ensure that we can find a way that students can use social media to generate ideas, to find examples? And I think where I'm using tools, let's say kind of Padlets or polls or even a kind of an online Google document, is being able to encourage students just to find a video or find an Instagram post and put it in the open resource and the collaborative space that they're using. So it's kind of encouraging them to use the social media, but without encroaching on their space.
Mix it up. Don't just have one channel and don't just do email, because emails sometimes what the person says doesn't not necessarily communicate how they're feeling. I think it's really important to see students, especially students that have issues with well-being. You need to see their faces, and the email doesn't translate into actually being able to resolve or help that student. So I think that with the sort of pastoral care responsibilities that we have, I think social media is a great way of just checking, are you okay, etc. But I think seeing the student is a lot more important.
A key issue is recognising that not all modules and courses will be delivered in exactly the same way. So there are bound to be differences because different approaches suit different disciplines, and we need to make sure that we ensure that whatever mode of delivery and approach is taken, we have a high quality experience for our students. One of the ways that we do that is to try and pair colleagues up to both informal mentoring relationships, but also peer observation of teaching, which is designed to give feedback on delivery. We also, of course, place student voice right at the centre of things. So that means that we seek proactively feedback from our students, both via informal channels and more formal channels. And we seek to try and close the loop with student feedback and make sure that we try and use what students are telling us to improve our modules, address any issues, and try and improve things still further.
So if you stand at the front of a lecture theatre these days in any business school, you'll be faced with a sea of laptop screens or tablet screens facing out at you. Very few students will sit and give you their undivided attention because they're using those devices to consume learning and to take notes and do a variety of different things simultaneously. And I think that's a tremendous asset to us. we do have to think very carefully about the inclusivity of that, because there is a digital exclusion that happens if you don't have high enough quality equipment to consume multimedia learning, and you don't necessarily have access to Wi-Fi or broadband with sufficient connectivity to study flexibly when you're not on campus. And I think that that has really become clear through the pandemic, that the cost to the student of having that digital architecture around them is non-trivial and may or may not be part of their default equipment that they bring into the learning experience. So I think we continue to use the cutting edge of technology as best we can to enable learning in various different ways in various different settings. But there's a financial cost to that that we need to think really carefully about how we deliver as inclusive and equitable an opportunity to learn to students who may not have the same digital resources at their disposal.
I know some people have concerns about social media with it being an unregulated space, but I think the key thing for me, it's the space where the students are. They're going to have these conversations anyway, and at least if it's in a social media site supported by the programme or by us, at least we can see the conversations that they're having, and it does enable us to step in and correct a misperception or correct something like a Chinese whisper, which can grow. So all of that kind of stuff I think is really important. But I think for us, the real value of the social media is it is a space that we co-create with students rather than us create it.